called fake news. Fake news. You are fake news. It's all fake news. Fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen. It's all fake news.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the World Beyond Mad, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 2 of this very interesting presentation that we're going to do here about the Oera Linda book, the Bible. So we got our guest with us today, just like on the last episode, just unlike many other episodes. The self-proclaimed Elohim, the Mr. Saad Osman, is here today. And we're going to go back into the Oera Linda book. We're going to go back into history. Or whatever that is. I mean, we can only guess. This is all what has transpired. And we're going to go into it. Let me get the clip. This is today. It is Wednesday, the 5th of August. We're gonna do this stuff. I'm gonna put up another interesting clip and get into it. Now, I don't know if you saw the first one, which was rather interesting, I'd say. And it was all about the Oera Linda and the Bible, a lot of connections there. And there's some debates over what is the oldest language really as part of it, because they both claim their languages are very old. And I find it interesting, so we will dive into it. We will see how this connects, how this correlates, plot stories, a lot of interesting things there, ideas how to run a society, problems with the priest class. All of that good stuff is going to come into it. So we'll just dive into it. We'll just have to wait a little bit till our guest shows up, but it can take a bit. But I think we'll just kick it off anyway. And let's enjoy this. Let's put this on the stage. Here we go. And dive into it. The primal teachings. Let me show you a little bit here. Primal teachings. Hang on. So, all right. Now, regarding our physical dimension, we are part of Ralda's infinite being, as is the physical dimension of all that was created. However, regarding our appearance, our characteristics, our mind, and all our thoughts, these do not belong to the being. All these are volatile phenomena that appear through Ralda's life, and that appear as such through his wisdom and not otherwise. Whereas this life is continually progressing, however, nothing can remain stationary. Therefore, all creatures change their position and their shape, as well as their minds. Therefore, can neither Earth itself nor any creature ever say I am, but rather I was. Likewise, no man can ever say I think, but merely I thought. Now that is very interesting. That goes into the nature of material life, which comes and goes, and thoughts, which are the past. Very true. And so there is something above all that, something above thought. And how this all correlates in this dimension, it's a very interesting thing. And how to live within this dimension, that's a lot of what the Oera Linda book seems to be teaching and telling us, that things are happening there. So we got our guest is on the show, ladies and gentlemen. So that is good. We'll put him on the stage. Yeah. I'll play it again. Oh. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? You going
These
for a bit more punishment, are we? Doing a round two?
Yeah, round two, the primal teachings. I just read it, and I think I think he already read it too. But this is where we pretty much left off the last time, and we're just gonna get into it. We are like 34 minutes in, and this clip is 1 hour and 60 minutes, so there's a good portion to go. Well, this was interesting, talking about the physical dimension, which we are part of Rolla, or maybe you can call it consciousness, perhaps awareness, consciousness in the physical dimension that was all created. However, regarding our appearance and our characteristics, our mind and all our thoughts, these do not belong to the being. All these are volatile phenomena that appear through Ralda's life. So it's basically, you could kind of replace it with consciousness, I would say, because if you put a figurehead on it, you always have this idea in your mind that there's some being out there, on a cloud with a white beard or something, And I think even in the Jewish traditions, you don't even have a name for God really, or an image at least. And I think all images kind of, I would say all kind of images are distracting as well. So because a lot of things you can't see, like we discovered that plants are aware pretty much, and they don't even have a brain. So how does that work? So
well, a lot of people seem to function all right without a brain these days.
that's true. That's a very good point. I like that one. Let me see. I'm already late on this one, but we had
even worse, they have got a brain, sadly. So I don't know. That we won't document that one day. I think we'll dig deeper into the plant realm another time. I think. Couldn't help it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Some applause for that one. Yeah, good point. Well, what do you remember where we were last time? And wanted to add anything, or we'll just dive right back into it here in part two?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit blurry towards the end there. We talked about and covered so much in that last one, just that 30-minute presentation. Looks like we might be due for a third after this by the sounds of it. What do you got, another hour at least to play of this all up, have you?
Yeah, this is this clip is just close to 35 minutes in, so it's 1 hour and 16 minutes. So we got a good portion to go. I don't even think we'll make it all the way to the end, but we'll see.
Fair enough. Yeah, if we have to do a number 3, I'll be happy to come on board with you and get into that. But no, man, I'd be happy. I think we've said enough where we left off and just continue and just see where it takes us from here, I guess.
Yeah, because you see, they go in. Well, the next one will be interesting. They go into the priest and the prophet struggle, so that is going to be good in a few minutes. So yeah, let's just take it off here. Gonna play a few minutes, and then we'll take a break and we'll talk about it. I'll put it on the screen, enlarge it for everybody to enjoy this stuff. For everybody who doesn't know about the Oera Linda, there is a lot of stuff on it on YouTube, by the way, these days. Especially if you look into Jan Ott, the Dutchman, who was doing a lot of work, a lot of research into it. I mean, in his spare time, he's not a real academic or anything, but he does know languages very well. And he's been translating it from Old Frisian into Dutch. He also wasn't happy with the English translation. Also, it is not, even though it's not his mother tongue. So I think he worked on a better English translation as well. And yeah, there's a lot of videos online, a lot in Dutch, also a couple in English. So you can check that out, where I think he's the best source to understand the Oera Linda a little bit. I have my own source, but unfortunately I lost a bit context. But anyway, let's continue. The Oera Linda book, coming from the Netherlands, that's where they found it. The family over the Linde, talking about to keep this ancient story alive, and warning that it shouldn't never fall in the hands of the priests. So interesting. Let's continue on. We'll pick it up here.
I think that merely a thought. So, of course, one of the names of Yahweh is the great I am. And the Oera Linda book here is saying that the only person who can actually say I am is Ralda, because he's the one that doesn't change. But we as people or creatures or animals or whatever being is on earth, we're constantly changing. And so we're never the same 1 second later. We're in constant flux. So we should never say I am, but rather I was. So the only being that is suitable to have this title of I am is the Creator. In their language, it's Ralda. But I really do believe that this is a pure.
Well, maybe I didn't say it right talking about consciousness, because consciousness can change, obviously, but maybe it's not consciousness itself. Maybe it's just awareness that's changing, your perception, not so much consciousness. So
Pure understanding of Yahweh. The boy is larger and different from when he was a child. He has other desires, passions, and ways of thinking. The man and his father is and thinks differently from when he was a boy. The same applies to the elderly. Everyone knows this. Since everyone thus knows and must acknowledge that one is continually changing, one must also acknowledge that one changes every instant. Also, whilst one says I am, and that one's thoughts changed, whilst one says I think, instead then of inappropriately imitating the bad Findas and saying I am, or even I am the best part of Ralda, yes, through us alone can he think, we proclaim the following always and everywhere when it is necessary. We, Friar's children, are emergences through Ralda's life. In the beginning, mean and bare, but always becoming and advancing toward perfection, without ever becoming as good as Ralda himself. Our mind is not Ralda's spirit, it is merely a semblance of it. When Ralda created us, he provided us through his wisdom with brains, senses, memory, and many good qualities. By means of these, we can contemplate his creations and his laws. From that, we can learn, and about that which we can speak. All and only for our own benefit. If Ralda had not given us any senses, we would know nothing, and we would be yet more helpless than a jellyfish that is driven forth by the ebb and flow. So that was the end of the of their primal teachings, and so now we're moving into this.
Okay, very interesting there. Still, it's they describing something that is bigger than them, something that has created them, and something that without that God or energy or force, mankind doesn't stand much of a chance, and has a lot to thank this particular being called Ralda. Now it's getting really interesting. We're going to go to the priest and the prophet struggle. The priest cross in the Oera Linda book is being described as very nefarious and annoying and interfering in man's affairs. So let's see what they have to say.
Subject of this prophet and priest struggle. Here you can see the reference to Atlant sinking. It says 101 years after Aldlin sank, folk came out of the east. These folks had been driven back by another people. Beyond our Twiskland, they fell into dispute. Twiskland is Germany. They divided into two large groups, and each went his own way. One part no account has come to us, but the other part invaded the rear of our Skeenland. Skeenland was sparsely populated, and at the coast, the rear the least at all. Therefore, they were able to occupy it without conflict, and as they did no other harm, we had no desire to go to war over it. So it was after this disaster, there were these people who moved in to be their neighbors and kind of took over this piece of land near them.
Now you see, that's what I mean. If you live with your group, it doesn't mean it has to be a problem. Like they say, okay, there was nobody living, I'll go there. It's a little bit like the South African story, Apparently there was really no one. White people came there, built something, and it shouldn't have been a problem. But of course, because of economics and propaganda and all that stuff, it became a problem, as we will see here. So that's the way it is, It doesn't have to be a problem. If you want to live there with your group and you're all right, go ahead, You think you can manage, and if you feel all right there, do it. So that's quite interesting that they mentioned that here.
But the Frisians said, we didn't see a need to fight over it. They weren't causing us any harm, so we allowed them to stay there. Now that we have come to know them, we want to write about their customs as well as our experiences with them.
Okay, now that's getting interesting now. Hold on to your horses. We're getting to the nitty-gritty of it.
They were not wild like many of Fenda's tribes, but similar to the Egyptians. They have priests like them. And now that they have temples, idols as well. The priests are the only masters. They call themselves Magyars. This is probably connected to the Magi. One of the things that Asher Logos talks about on his channel is he finds numerous accounts of different priesthoods throughout the world, and they all have these titles like the Magus, the Magi. We have like Simon Magus from the recognitions and from the Bible, but you also have this priest class, and their names do change over time. So some of them could be like the Gauls. The Gauls were actually a priest class that ruled over the people we know as the Gauls, but the Gauls was not the actual name of the people originally. It was the name of their priests. So they call themselves Magyars. The supreme one is called Magus. Again, Simon Magus. He is a high priest and king in one. All other folk are trivial and entirely under their rule. They do not even have a name, but we call them Finns because although their feasts are altogether dreary and bloody, they are much more fine or formal than ours. So
that's interesting. They have no name. They just gave him a name. But it would be interesting to find out in history who they were really talking about. So I don't have a clue. My knowledge of that period of history is not really good at all. So I would really have to dig into that. Okay, let's continue.
Here you see this again, this formal priest class with their ceremonies and such coming in, and idols coming into the storyline. They are not to be envied, however, because they are slaves of the priests and much worse to their creeds. They believe that evil spirits are everywhere and enter into people and animals, but of Ralda's spirit they know nothing. The Finns.
Oh, that's interesting. So they believe that evil spirits are everywhere and enter into people and animals. That makes me think a little bit about, sometimes you hear like the Indian tribes, had this belief. You could say it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing because you can believe that everything is alive, but they clearly didn't see it that way. So
have stone weapons. Their weapons of the Magyars are of copper. The Magyars claim that they can ban and banish the evil spirits. The Finns are always in fear because of this, and their faces never show signs of joy.
Copper. Now that is interesting. That's a very good thing to have. Interesting. So they have weapons of stone, but the Magus have copper. Well, that seems to be a little bit more superior. Do we know anything of copper? Egyptians, they were much wearing a lot of things, gold, stuff like that. Let's find out more.
When they were well settled, the Magyars sought our allegiance. They praised our language and customs, our cattle and iron weapons, which they were eager to exchange with their gold and silver ornaments, and they always kept their populace within their boundaries. That, however, made us complacent. 80 years later, the Yule Fest had just begun. They unexpectedly, and like a blizzard, covered our lands. Those who could not flee were killed.
So an unexpected attack.
Freya was called upon, but the Skilanders had neglected her advice. Then forces were gathered. 3 poles from the Godaberg, the Magyars, were stopped.
That's interesting. Godaberg could maybe be Gothenburg in Sweden. Just guessing. Could be completely off, but Godaberg could also be actually in the Netherlands. We have a place called Gouda. In English, you could say Gouda. That is Gouda. And Berg is, like there's a lot of Bergs in the book. So could actually be in the Netherlands. That's near, nowadays, that's near Rotterdam in the province of South Holland. So interesting.
But war continued. Kate, or Catherine, was the name of the Berg maiden at Gothenburg. Kate was proud and haughty, which kept her from asking the mother for advice or assistance. When the Berg lords realized this, however, they themselves sent messengers to the mother at Textland. Minna, as
And that is back in the Netherlands. Textland is supposed to be Texel, the isle. Texel.
the mother was called, was summoned all steersmen and the other young folks of East Freeland and the Denmarks.
Denmark's. Huh.
From this expedition, the history of Woden was born, just as it was inscribed at the Bergs and written here.
Wow. Hey, you have to go slow. There's so much already in here. So, an expedition. And then we talk about Woden, which was, of course, big in Scandinavia as well as in Germany, in that area. Okay, let's play this and then we'll talk a bit because there's a lot here that's going on.
When the young warriors had assembled, they chose Woden as their army leader or king. The sea warriors chose Tunis as their sea king and Inca as their deputy by night. The navy then sailed into Denmark, where they took on board Woden and his brave army. The wind was fair, and so they shortly arrived in Skeenland. When the brothers to the north had joined them, Woden divided his powerful army into three. Free was their war cry, and thus drove back the Finns and Magyars as if they were children.
Well, easy defeat. So, wow, let's talk about this because there's a lot of things here going on at the same time. Okay, let's put this back here. So, good Lord, there's a lot of things happening. So we're talking about Denmark, so we have to assume that's Denmark. We're talking about Textland, which is probably Texel, which is now an isle. Maybe back then it was connected to the land, could be. But from there to Denmark is not very far. So they were under attack. They let those people live there. They let them in peace for 80 years. Now, 80 years is interesting because the Spanish and the Dutch had an 80 years war. So they sailed to Denmark, where Woden apparently was born. Apparently, maybe they had it already there in Denmark. I mean, it comes from that area pretty much, Woden and Odin and all that stuff, and they took up arms together and they kicked them out. So there's a lot going on here in this short little bit here. Well, let's ask our guest what he makes of all this. What's going on? You have to know a little bit of region, but what does it mean to you?
Not being too familiar with your sort of side of the world and the region. The name, what was it? Golben.
Let me go back. Goodberg. Go a little back here. So you have the Skeenlanders. Freya was called upon. The Skeenlanders had neglected her advice. Then forces were gathered. 3 poles from Gothenburg. Yeah, so Gothenburg could maybe. Yeah.
Is that a relationship to German as well? Because the Saxo-Gobis, weren't they the Germanics that come through that they changed their name into Windsor during through the Queen? I think around the Second World War, so they didn't sound so Germanic. So could that relate also to German in that area of the world? Do you think there could be a relationship there as well?
Yeah, anything is possible, I suppose. I mean, I think that was a lot later, not with the Windsors, but I mean, I think if I look at it, Gothenburg for me, I mean, with my little knowledge of it, could be Gothenburg, could be Gothenburg, which is in Sweden, obviously, or like I said, or it could be nowadays we have the city or the town of Gouda or Gouda.
Okay, yeah.
Which is near Rotterdam, which is in the south of Holland, the province of South Holland. So, and they talk also about Textland here later. They sent messages to the mother at Textland, which is Texel, obviously, which is now an island. And yeah, I would actually have to show you on the map. You could see that those places are not so far from each other.
Yeah, I'm trying to visualize it. Yeah, I'm getting the gist of it now. Yeah, so it's more around Swedish Denmark sort of area, pretty much around that
Yeah,
neck of the woods. Yeah.
I would like to put the map up, but I think it's going to get a little bit of lagging going on. So
The only way you could probably do that is just to quickly throw it up on the screen for a couple of seconds, and we don't talk, and then take it straight back down. Maybe that will stop the glitch when it comes on. For anyone watching later.
I can take this one off and find it, and we just keep talking a bit, and I'll take this one off and then put on the map, because it's good to see the map actually. Then you have a much more. Because I have it in my head, I can clearly see it, but it's good for people to see, so you know what I'm talking about, and maybe we can make some links. So I'm gonna try it. I'm just gonna take this off.
Well, the interesting thing on the studies, I'll get digging deeper in this documentary I was talking about with you on the side about Yahweh and Yao. And there's a huge correlation between that and copper as well. The copper industry of Yahweh, believe it or not, and vineyards as well. I don't know if there's going to be wine brought into this as well, but copper, and that was more around the Lebanese, Lebanon, Tyre area. Sorry, I was just cutting. No, it's cutting out.
Just yeah. No, it's not possible.
That's all right.
It's lagging.
It was all freezing. Yeah, it was no good. That's okay. People can get their map out. I can do the same if I wanted to. I'll get the general gist though. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to point it out, because it would be so nice to see.
I was just going to add, if you can hear me okay, about the copper issue, because that was a tie-in with the Yahweh cult as well. Copper was a big influence in their earliest when it comes to resources. They had a big thing about copper around Tyre and I guess the area of Lebanon today. That's where also pretty much the first, I think, inscription or notable trace back to the name of Yao, which correlates into Yahweh. So, and that all evolved around the copper industry of alchemy as well, and dealing with metallurgy. So that's an interesting thing there, where they brought up copper as well.
Yeah. So maybe they are, talking about that. I wasn't clear, because they said they didn't know who they were. They didn't have a name, so they just gave them the name Vince. But what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna try and show it from my phone on the map, because I do want to show it, so it will make a lot of sense. Let me see. I do want to, so people will have an idea what we're talking about here. Okay, here. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So, see if people can see this on the map here. Wait, let me get it a bit clear.
Just tilt it down a little bit, mate. The lights in the background, just sort of tilt. Yeah, that's it. That's better.
Okay, let's see. Is it a little bit clear?
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. Yeah.
Gouda. So this is zoomed in. I'll zoom out a bit, and then you will see if we connect it to Texel, Texland, where they talk about Texland, is here. Texel, the Isle.
An island, yeah.
But it could be, that's what John Ott said. It could be that back then there wasn't an isle; it was connected to the mainland.
Well, then you're going back quite a few years. Then, geez, that'd be when the water has. What they say, the water's risen. I think it was roughly 30 meters at the most in most areas. So between about 14 to 30 meters, which would connect a lot of the lands now that are separated, obviously. The younger tribes, I think, yeah.
And I'll show you how close it actually is to Denmark. So with that, you will see Texel. And let me see. Get it clear. And then you see Denmark there.
Mm-hmm.
And the red is Texel. the little red.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
So you see how close that actually is to sail. It's not.
Mm.
I hope next time I will prepare a little bit if I can use the real map. It will be much closer. But you see, all these places are very close because it's a small country. You have
Yeah,
Gudabörg. Could have been Gothenburg. That's Sweden, which is also not that far.
yeah. That would make
But I think
sense.
Gudabörg, since they called London things Berg, and we still have a lot of Bergs, but usually Berg nowadays is called Burgt, or Berg is really more like a mountain. Berg, Berg is more like a
Okay.
mountain. So since we don't have mountains, but Bergs, it's like a city or a castle or a town.
Oh, okay.
Berg.
Citadel sort of thing. Yeah.
A Berg. So
Okay.
Gudasburg could be what is Gouda, Gouda today, and goud in Dutch is gold. Goud,
Okay.
Gouda,
Yeah.
but it's not exactly translated to gold. But if you make a little bit of a link, could be. But that whole it's too bad I couldn't get Chris on, but he knows a lot more about that history there because that whole place around Rotterdam was apparently in the past a place called Slavenburg. Slaveburg. So there's a lot of stuff happened there too. That's also in that same area around Goudaburg. So there's a lot of dot connecting if you just fantasize a bit and try to put it together. Could be just completely off. But
is that the same as Schwaben that the Germans talked about, New Schwabenland?
Yeah, but that was
the Antarctic.
Yeah, that's the Antarctic. Yeah, it's
Okay,
not the same thing.
That was
At
the
least
conspiracy
to my
about
knowledge,
the
at least,
base, the New Schwabenland. What was that? The Germanic base, so-called. People talk about speculating that the Germans, went there. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So let's see, because we have a lot to unpack. They talk about the Skeenlanders. I'm not sure who they're referring to here, but I think they talk about there in Scandinavia, it seems. And here again, Goudaburg, which, like I said, could be Gouda today or Gothenburg, but because they were all over.
Yep. Reminds me of Gosha. Gosha.
Yeah. And there's a couple of options there, but like I said, Gouda would make the most sense in the if you look at the location.
Oh, absolutely, definitely.
I could actually, I would have to actually do some check out what if there was another name for it in the past. I will do that in a moment.
That could be the key to it all too. Yeah, that could open up a lot. Yeah, it could connect the dots. Yeah.
But just to zoom out a bit, it's interesting. So they let these people come in. They said, okay, there's nobody living there. It's fine. You can live there. And then they started observing them and their ways. Like, something is not right with these people. But as long as they don't bother us, I'm also similar. As long as you don't bother me, do whatever you want. But
that's it. Yeah.
Then 80 years later, they did bother them, and they came to regret it because they started to mobilize their friends there in the Denmarkers, the tribe of Dan, maybe, I don't know, but and they together kicked them out. It says here. So, but they had to go to Texland, and she summoned the steersman and all the other young folk of East Vlieland and the Denmarks. Now, I'm not sure what East Vlieland would be. We have Vlieland the Isle. Let me see, which could be. That's another interesting thing. It's another isle. We have a couple of isles there on top.
It wouldn't relate to Finland at all, would it? Or is that a bit too out of the area, Finland?
Well, it's not too far away.
It sounds very similar.
But the mistake is that the Frisians are not the Vikings, so there's not the same people.
No, aren't the Vikings more Scandinavian?
Yeah. That's a real Scandinavian thing, and but there was a lot of trade going back and forth because it's so close by. From Texel and the Dutch Isles to Denmark and Norway, it's not very far. So there is a lot of correlations, I think, between those two.
Yeah.
All right, let's play a bit more, and I'm gonna look up in the meantime this if there's another name for if there was another name for Gouda, for Gouda, and we'll find out. So we'll be back. We'll play a little bit more. We go into this struggle. So interesting. They they kick their asses, as they said in the other part here.
Catherine was the name of the bird maiden at Gothenburg.
We were. I put a little bit back, so we go a little bit back and we continue.
Kate was proud and haughty, which kept her from asking the mother for advice or assistance. When the Berg lords realized this, however, they themselves sent messengers to the mother at Textland. Minna, as the mother was called, was summoned all steersmen and the other young folks of East Freeland and the Denmarks. From this expedition, the history of Woden was born, just as it was inscribed at the Bergs and written here.
Oh yes, Woden. Yeah, we're talking about that too. So, from this expedition, it was born, and that is the Scandinavian thing, yeah, and also a German thing, actually, the Woden.
When the young warriors had assembled, they chose Woden as their army leader or king. The sea warriors chose Tunis as their sea king and Inca as their deputy by night.
Tunis is interesting. Chris talked about it when he was on my show. You have Neptune, and we have in Dutch neef Teunis, which is cousin Tunis. So interesting wordplays.
Navy then sailed into Denmark, where they took on board Woden and his brave army. The wind was fair, and so they shortly arrived in Skeenland. When the brothers of the north had joined them, Woden divided his powerful army into three. Freya was their war cry, and thus drove back the Finns and Magyars as if they were children. So this is the origin of the mythology.
Either they were not very good fighters, or, the Frisians and the Scandinavians were extremely good fighters.
About Odin. And what you're going to see here is that when Woden defeated the Magyars, instead of staying hostile toward him, these Magyars had a different tactic. What they did was they made peace with Woden. They promoted him, made him a king, and basically kind of worked through him. Like they were there to undermine him rather than fighting him. They subverted him, and after he died, they deified him, and so that's where this pagan god Odin comes from. Is from this man. And this is something you see throughout the Oera Linda, is that it shows how these pagan gods were all based upon people, exceptional human beings, but not gods. And these myths were not perpetrated by the Frisians. It was perpetrated by these what they call the Fendas folk, who is this priest class who does this for control. So they knew they couldn't fight against Woden, so they supplant him and basically become like his advisors and steer him in the direction they want to. Much like a certain tribe of people have supplanted the leadership in our country and used their influence to rule from the shadows. It's the same thing going on here. When the Magus heard how his men were being slain, he sent messengers with sepulchre and crown. They said to Woden, "O you greatest of kings, we are guilty, but all that we have done was done from necessity. You think that we took on your brothers willingly, but we were whipped forth by our enemies, who are still at our heels. We often asked your bird maiden for help, but she ignored us. You are the most heroic king on earth. Your folk are of iron. Become our king, and we shall willingly be your slaves. What honor it would be for you if you could drive back the savages. Our trumpets would resound with it, and our praises would precede you everywhere." So see, they're taking advantage of Woden's desire for power and glory by trying to usurp him instead of defeat him outright. It says Woden was strong, fierce, and heroic, but he was not clear-sighted. Therefore, he was caught in their trap and crowned by the Magus. After Woden was crowned, he attacked the savages. They were all horsemen and charged down on Woden's troops like a hailstorm. But like a whirlwind, they turned back and did not dare to appear again. When Woden returned, the Magus gave him his daughter as a wife. He then was incensed with herbs. However, among them was magic herbs, and gradually Woden became so audacious that he dared to disavow and ridicule Freya and Ralda's spirit, while he bent his free neck before the images of false gods. His reign lasted 7 years, and then he disappeared. The Magus said that he had been accepted among the gods, and that he ruled them from there, but our folk laughed at his words.
And that's quite complex, what's going on all here. We have to try to unravel all this, what's going on here. So, man, you have to really go slow into this stuff. Go a little bit back, because they asked for help, and then it seems like he turns a little bit against them. Go back a little bit more here. So here we go. We go back to here, where Woden was born. So, like he said, it wasn't some kind of god, but it was more like a fierce warrior king or something. Then you have also the sea warriors who join in that chose Tunis, or Neptune, or whatever, Tunis, as they're seeking, and Inca, another interesting name, as their deputy by night. The navy then sailed to the Denmark, so they went from the Netherlands then to Denmark, I guess, when they took on board Woden and his brave army. The wind was fair, and so shortly arrived in Skeenland. Yeah, now that must be in Scandinavia then. Or it could be Greenland, but that would be weird. Who knows? It's not that far. When the brothers of the North had joined him, Woden divided his powerful army in 3. Freya was their main cry. Okay, so they were going under the banner of Freya. And he drove back the Finns and the Magyars. Yeah, so he did drove them back, but then here it starts to change. So when the word came back, he sent messages with scepter and crown, whatever that means. So they were impressed, apparently. They started to become a little bit, afraid, and started to try to win him on their side, apparently. Okay, so that's what I get from it. So then he basically went the other side, if I'm getting this correctly. Well, what do you make of it? I'm trying to put this a little bit together. All this story.
I'm sort of concentrating more on you at the moment and visualizing it all, but yeah, it's a little bit out of my realms what you're talking about at the moment to offer anything really. Especially linguistics with your area, you'd be pretty much more savvy with all that.
I mean, I don't know either. I'm just trying to follow what they say here, and it seems like they went up there and then went back and kicked them out, and then this Woden character, what I get from it at least, seems to be the Magyars were like, oh, they beat us. Well, maybe we should win him for us, and then they seem to be getting on to their side. And here it says the Magus said that he had been accepted among their gods, so he liked to be a god himself, and then he ruled from there. But our folk laughed at his words, so the Frians didn't really say, "Well, you're not a god."
Yeah, well, see, I get a bit probably sidetracked unless there is a correlation between the two. I relate the Magi or the Magi with the Medes, the Medo Persian Empire. I don't know if that fits in there anywhere in it, or I might be way off base. But yeah, I don't know if there's a connection with the Medes. But I've always, in my sort of brief history of that sort of area and the Medes and the Persians, I was pretty sure that in my mind at the moment that the Medes were more related to the Magi, or Magi related to the Medes. If that fits into where you're coming from, or the whole scheme of things, that's about all I've really got to offer on that.
Well, it seems to be because that whole empire was full with gold ornaments and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
if you look at the clothing, how they dressed was all with this kind of gold, and then the priest class on top of it. So
yeah,
could
I
actually
think
be.
when the Magi come to see Jesus in the New Testament era, that I think the scholarly thing was that they had a relation to the Medes, or that's where they come from, the Magi of the Bible. So that's another reason I'm sort of correlating that with the Magi as well.
Yeah, I have to do a little bit more research, because I'm pretty sure Jan Ott has put down pretty much who is who. There's I can find that. I would have to do that for the next time. I would prepare a list of who is who, because I think he put that in his website. The funny thing is, now this is ChatGPT, but I was kind of right according to ChatGPT, because I asked about Gouda or Gouda, and it said, yeah, it had some other names, and then I said, how about Goudaburg? And it said, yes, it's was an old Latin German name for Gouda, but there's not much historical evidence for it. But there seems to be a connection, which I thought already, so that makes sense in the area
There's
that
that
we're
German
talking about.
connection I was picking up too. With the Goldbergs, or the Saxe-Goldbergs from German lineage, but that German lineage could have come later too, couldn't it? Really, like instead of before. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's such a tight sort of area that you can see things overlapping. But which came first, the chicken or the egg, sort of thing?
Yeah. It's a linguistic struggle.
Well,
But you can
look
put
at
it
our
there.
own language today: tomato or tomato. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, the real language experts know a little bit how to make something out of it, where it's really something substantial.
Well,
But
they say where there's smoke, there's fire. That's a good analogy, really. It's if there's a similarity there, it's quite possibly there for a reason. More than not.
yeah, if I go by what they write and I think about the locations, it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So probably,
putting that together. Yeah.
if I think about the Netherlands, and so you have the map of the Netherlands, so that's somewhere in the middle is this place, Gouda. Then you go up, that's where Texland is, and you go up, you go to Scandinavia. So they were down what we call down the rivers. They were more. They were
That's
more
right.
in this.
Exactly.
They were in this.
Scandinavia's north. Vikings coming from the north. Yeah.
So they were in the south then,
Yeah.
which is nowadays the south. The place we're talking about is the province of South Holland, but that's not the south. The south is more downstairs. So if I'm thinking that way. So if they settled there somewhere, could make sense.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to move up. Where Friesland is today is up. Friesland today, the little piece is in the north, is up there, more towards Scandinavia. So, and geographically, it all makes sense if I try to put it in that way.
Yeah, that's how I'm sort of picturing it too. Yeah.
So yeah, next time I would have to get the map. It will make a lot more clear, and I would have to get the names, because Jan Ott, he did do a lot of figuring out what places, who they were supposedly talking about, the names and everything. So I have to get that list, because I'm not sure where these locations are. But anyway, this is getting interesting. We are now already 15 minutes in.
Oh wow.
Yes, it takes so long because you have to get into it slowly. There's so much being said in one page, so it's gonna take.
Well, that's it. Why not do it thorough? If it takes you another couple of episodes, it takes that. That's just the way it works. Not much you can do about it. Better than rushing it and just digging into it, like finding things as we go along together too. That's the beauty of it. And people that are listening back later going, yelling at us, saying it's this.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just we're not
They
experts. We're
got
just
their
trying
own
to.
dots that they're connecting as well.
Yeah, sure. That's good. We're just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And if somebody else has a piece,
Exactly.
good. You put the
Yeah.
piece there. That's fine. I mean, it's just we're just looking at it. But that's why I have to go slow. I learned that actually doing these shows, like go slow, because you can play 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you already forgot where you were. So you have to
No,
just
yeah.
go bit by bit.
Yeah, I
So
know exactly. Yeah.
let's continue on like two more slides, and then we get up
Okay.
to the top of the hour. And if we have enough energy left, we continue. And otherwise, we'll do another one, another episode some other day. So okay, I think that's where we left off. So yeah, Mr. Woden, he kind of was asked to help. That's what I get from this. He drove them back, and then they charmed him as a god, and his ego was really apparently taken by it. That's what I get from this, at least. And but the Frisians didn't really care for it much. They said we laughed at his words. You're not a god. So let's see what happens after that.
Bent his free neck before the images of false gods. His reign lasted 7 years and then disappeared. The Magus said that he had been accepted among the gods and that he ruled them from there, but our folk laughed at his words.
So that's also the difference, I think, between the Vikings and the Frisians. These characters, they either they're fictional or they were real people who turned themselves into gods. Whereas the Frisians only had Ralda; they didn't accept man-created gods.
So next we have a description of the Maiden's Tower.
You see, the problem is there are bits and pieces of this book, so you don't get the whole. You get bits and pieces of story, so it makes it even more complicated. So that story basically ends there, then, unfortunately. But let's see what we have here.
Citadel, which we'd mentioned this earlier. It was to house this flame, this torch that was kept burning perpetually by the women that worked there.
And that's interesting because that correlates, and again, to the Persians who had the same thing, to the everlasting fire, keep that burning, and the flame. Yeah.
The virgins and the maidens.
I was just going to say, it was interesting when I mentioned Citadel earlier when you were talking about, he just brought the word Citadel up as well. So there was another interesting thing to pick up on, where you're talking about, castles and all that, and whether it's just a slight variation in terminologies of the two. But yeah, just caught on that when he said Citadel. That's all. What the main distinction of is, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, just curious that he brought up that word in particular.
Yeah, no, it is, and you can see that also a lot of old structures are all centered around these kind of citadels and towers and walls, which you talk about here. So that's good. We're gonna get into that a little bit here.
That would keep this fire burnt. And there are numerous stories throughout the Oera Linda of war coming to one of their villages, and so the Berg Maiden would have to flee with the lamp to keep the fire burning. And there were some stories about how disaster befell them, and the light ended up going out, and they had to go to a different citadel to relight their lamp. And so this actually corresponds to, if you haven't picked up on that already, it actually corresponds to some of Yeshua's parables, and we'll get to that shortly. But here's the description of what the tower or the citadel looked like. It said, all the bergs are the same shape, ours being the largest outside of Texland, which is the largest of all. The tower of Friasberg on Texland reaches the clouds, and the rest of the berg is in proportion to it. Tasks at our berg are divided so that 7 young maidens may attend the lamp in 3-hour shifts. In the remaining time, they do housework, study, and sleep. After 7 years of watching, they are free. Then they can go among the people to uphold morals and give advice. After having been a maiden for 3 years, they can sometimes join the older maidens. The scribe must teach the maiden apprentices to read, to write, to calculate. The gray or alderman must teach them justice and duty, knowledge of seeds, herbs, and healing. histories, tales, songs, and anything else that they may need for giving advice. The Berg Maiden teaches them how to apply all this when advising people.
So you see, the women had a very important role, but not every woman. You know, if you really didn't want to do this, you could just be an ordinary housewife, to call it like that. And only if you really wanted it and had that, and were chosen maybe to do it, you would see what you have to do for it. It was pretty clearly described here. Take the shifts, do the housework, study and sleep, and and basically gain a lot of wisdom. And they had advisory positions, and so they were, not your ordinary lady. They had some real knowledge and inspiration to give to society. And I think it's a beautiful thing how they divided, where you had kings and guys as leaders, but you have a very high role there given to women, and then you have the rest of society there, which has also to obey to quite a lot of rules, which are also in his book.
So this, of course, brings to mind Yeshua's parables about the virgins keeping their lamps lit, and how some of them ran out of oil. I'm wondering if the origin of Yeshua's parable comes from this setup, the way that the citadels were set up with the practices of these maidens. The person writing this particular part of the Oera Linda says, "My berg is in the northernmost part of Ligarda. The tower has 6 sides, is 3 times 30 feet high, flat on top, and has a small observatory. On each side of the tower, there is a building 300 feet long, 3 times 7 feet wide, and equally high, except the roof, which is arched. The berg is surrounded by a dike and then a moat, 3 times 7 foot deep, 3 times 12 feet wide. Looking down from the tower, one sees the shape of the Yule. Between the buildings on the south side, a variety of native and foreign herbs grow, of which the maidens must learn all properties." So if you can imagine this, it's a high tower. So it says that it's laid out in the shape of their wheel, that 6-spoked Yule wheel. And so the tower would probably be the axis of the wheel, the center of the wheel, and stretching out from it was
yeah.
Are you catching a bit of a similarity to the star fortresses in that what he's saying there? It sort of resembles to me the way he's speaking about spokes and that on a wheel. It reminds me of the star, those star fortresses that we've covered a little bit on the show here and there. But how they go out like a star shape, like a wheel. If you imagine a star shape and then put a round circle, it'll look like a spokes inside a wheel. Yeah, wonder if there is a correlation there that he's describing there to a degree. Like the 7 pillars of the spokes of the star, star fortress sort of a shape. It might be. I don't know if there's very prominent in that area of the earth, but interesting if there is a correlation there. Maybe a listener out there might be able to put that together somewhere, or they've come across that. Just interesting the way he's describing it. I'm just picturing a star fortress sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's very well described, very clearly, and how it would look like, or how it would be built.
Has he presented anything that he thinks it might look like, or is anyone that you've come across said that this is pretty much, he's describing the shape of spokes in wheels and things like that? I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up anyway for just, might be another little thing in the puzzle of it all.
Yeah, it's a good one. Could very well be. I mean, the problem, of course, is when I watch a couple of these shows, I would have to watch a bit more again of Jan Ott and check actually his website. But
there might be something there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many things after that period, of course, with the Romans being here, also here, and later on the French, and much later in more recent history, Germans. But so a lot of that older history has been overtaken by other history. So it's like this is go way this is supposed to go way before that, before the Romans, before all these things. So so it's hard to now see any evidence of that. If you dig now, many places in the Netherlands, they find when they dig up, when they do archaeology, they find things from Roman times, but going back all the way to that time. But there is still some pieces here and there, so I would have to, for the next one, I will prepare a bit more. I will look a little bit more at trying to see if I can get the map up, and I'll see if I can get some of Jan Ott's material from his website, where there is quite a lot of things he has translated in terms of what they mean, what the places are, what the words mean, what Gravids man mean, and what these ladies are supposed to be. So I will do that next time, so we can give it more context. Okay, we are exactly at an hour. So
there is another thing mentioned about the maidens as well. If you look at the proper terminology of Mary, that gave birth to Jesus, it wasn't actually virgin, which might be curious as well. That might fit in all this, where he mentions Yeshua, Jesus. Is that the word maiden is actually in the scripture, not virgin. So, and the so-called virgins with the lamp things, and this guy here is talking about maidens. So that might even make it even more of a stronger correlation if you look at that just one word there. Just wanted to throw that in there as well for people out there listening later, and might be able to see that connection as well, maybe.
Yeah, that would suggest they were in closer contact than anybody would have ever expected then.
Yeah, it's just interesting that, the virgin birth is a big thing in Christianity, but the word is actually mistranslated, which actually means young maiden. And he mentions maiden quite a few times there, as in young maiden and older maiden. So a very, very young maiden would be very young girl, obviously, and an older maiden would be, a bit older, obviously. So it'd be like saying, just twisting it around, saying young virgins and older virgins, which would be a mistranslation of the word maiden, where he's using it correctly. But when he's talking about the, whether it's in the scriptures, I think he said virgins with the 7 lamps and all this. Well, that's because the scriptures have mistranslated it to mean virgin, where really it should read maidens. So there you go. There might be an even stronger correlation there than what maybe even he was coming across himself there. You know what I mean? If he knew that other side of the linguistics. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. And also, I was thinking to your earlier remark about, in the beginning, about people's brains and knowledge. And you would think it's interesting because in spiritual disciplines, wisdom often goes with restraining from sexuality. So these maidens were not married, and then they didn't go into the traditional way of living, having a family and all that, and became like the wise women. But there was no sex. So, and nowadays, of course, being a virgin is really like something to look down upon. So the correlation between intellect and sexual interaction, and also in that society, it seems to be more about getting children and having happy families. And if you wanted that, you could choose that. You didn't have to be a wise maiden, but you needed some of them, obviously. And it's, they had quite respect, too. They were highly respected, but also in the book it says that if they were, it was not easy. If you were telling lies in that position, you will be dealt with. So it's, you had to be really pure, and they didn't really accept you to be a wise maiden and starting spreading false rumors or something.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, the purity also can go hand in hand with the, as I go through myself with abstinence and things like that. It's to, it's for your seed every month that, if anyone looks into the Kundalini experiences and that, and it's to go up and down the 33rd vertebrae, to do the double snake helix all the way up your spine and release that. So there is a which would give you a more of a spiritually awareness sort of a personality than someone that is. This is coming from a male side, but obviously there would be a similarities in the cycles of women as well. I'd gather with the moon phases and that sort of thing. That would explain a higher so-called wisdom in a more of a spiritual sort of sense, a more of a bit like when people have use ayahuasca to have that sort of spiritual experience, or becoming a version of sorts. You're keeping your seed and that energy, and instead of releasing it through sexual desires, you're deliberately holding it back for spiritual desires. If that would make sense, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or enlightenment.
And who better to do it than a woman, I suppose, Seems like
Do they have you picked up? Sorry, before I forget, have they picked up on the hair as well? Because I know that was a very when it comes to spirituality and connecting with source, hair was very important. I haven't noticed anything mentioned about the hair so far, but they might bring up something about that with the Vril Society, and that were very into that as well, by keeping their hair long because it's more of a connection to source.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, sure they didn't have short hair. I'm pretty sure of that. But there are very detailed descriptions, so maybe later on somewhere that's being described. I mean, I haven't fully read all of that, so but
I would not be at all
pretty sure.
surprised if it does come up somewhere about their hair as well.
But for sure, I think there's definitely a connection with that somewhere, but we'll find it if it's there. Yeah, very interesting. It's that spiritual connection with abstaining from that to gain wisdom, and also learning about herbs. So they were not just they were also there for many different things, not just for general wisdom, also for health and healing things. You would go to the wise mother or woman if you were if you had a sickness in the family or something. She would know this because they studied it. They studied the natural worlds and herbs. So they had a big function, actually, not just being wise. You just go there. Seems like everybody else is a little bit busy with living their lives and doing their things and creating their family and all that stuff. And then if there's something wrong, you go there to the wise lady and ask what to do. So like today we have doctors and everything, but so unfortunately they're all tied into the medical industry. But that wasn't back then. So yeah, they have a big role, and that's good to see that there's a nice role there for women, where we always get to hear that women were always mistreated. Well, not always. The Frisians didn't do it, unless you were not being honest. Then they dealt with you, but then you have it coming. You better be honest, lady. So let's play a little bit more. We are already 1 hour and 8 minutes in, and yeah, we have to go very slow into it because there's just so much to look at. Okay, let's go on. So this is the Maiden, the Tower, and the Citadel, and then let me see. They will go next to. He goes on a little bit more. The Shepherd of Hermas. Hermus. Who knows? Hormuz. All right, let's see.
Round, a round complex, and so it looked like the eel wheel from above, and it was surrounded by a wall and a moat, and it was, of course, then surrounded with fields, and notice there were
and it mentions a dike. Well, if you know anything about the Netherlands, we have plenty of dikes, or and not the American version of the words, but the ones that we build to deal with the water.
Gardens here. On the north side are fields only. The 3 northerly buildings are filled with corn and other stock. 2 on the south are to house and school the young maidens. The southernmost building is the Berg Maiden's home. In the tower, the lamp hangs. Its walls are decorated with precious stones. On the south wall, the text is written to the right side of it the primal teachings, and to the left the laws. The remaining 3 walls exhibit other text. So on the walls of these citadels, it is written there primal teachings and the creation epic and such. And we saw that in the previous slides where we were reading about that. It was words that were actually copied from the walls of these citadels. So if you have a pretty good picture in your mind of the layout of one of these citadels, presumably I would think that different burgs would maybe have different crops outside and such and so forth. This is a description of this one citadel in particular, but they all had the same basic layout according to the text. So reading this, it reminded me of an early Christian writing which didn't make it into the Bible, but the name of it was The Shepherd of Hermas. And the Shepherd of Hermas was a scriptural text that the church kept up until the Council of Nicaea. And it was not until the Council of Nicaea that the text was more or less rejected and kind of lost. And it was rediscovered recently. And so there are translations of it online if you have a desire to read that. But I find it interesting how close the description of a tower in the Shepherd of Hermas matches the description of these citadels. So in the Shepherd of Hermas, there's a tower that is actually spoken about quite extensively in the Shepherd. But this person, she, which is a personification of the church, says, "Do thou not see over against thee a great tower, which is built upon the water with bright square stones?" Okay, so the citadel that we just read about was made with precious stones, and here we have this tower built with bright square stones. The citadel we read about in the Oera Linda is surrounded by a moat, and here you see that this citadel, this tower, is built upon the water. So it sounds very similar to me. For the tower was built upon a square by these 6 young men that came with her, but many thousands of men brought stones. Some drew them out of the deep, others carried them from the ground, and gave them to the 6 young men. They took them and built. And for those stones which were drawn out of the deep, they put them all into the building, for they are polished, and their squares exactly answered one another. And so one was joined in such a wise to the other that there was no space to be seen where they were joined, inasmuch as the whole tower appeared to be built as it was of one stone. So this parable or vision that's in the Shepherd of Hermas, it's about building the church. And so the church body, these stones represent people that are being brought to build this tower. But it seems to be calling upon a memory of these citadels that are described in the Oera Linda. The Shepherd of Hermas goes on to say, about the gates stood 12 virgins, of which 4 that stood on the corners of the gate seemed to me to be the chiefest. Among the rest were also of worth, and they stood in the 4 parts of the gate. But those virgins which stood about the gate perceived that the building of the tower was to be hastened by them, and they stretched out their hands as if they were to receive somewhat from them to do. Then those 6 men commanded that they should lift up stones out of a certain deep place and prepare them for the building of the tower. And there were lifted up 10 white stones, square and not cut round. And it goes on, but this story I don't know if you call it a parable or a vision of these virgins working in this tower, sitting upon the water, it's prevalent throughout the Shepherd of Hermas. And it's a very close description with what we're being shown in the Oera Linda. And I can't help but think that there's a connection there. There's also a connection with Yeshua's parables, as I mentioned earlier. Here's one connection.
Well, that is very fascinating indeed, yeah. It seems then more that they have took that from the Oera Linda then, and maybe turn it into their own version or something. If that is the case, I don't know. But,
it sounds like that missing link is that virgin word and maiden word. That's what he's saying. There's something there, but the virtually only difference is that one's saying maiden and one's saying virgin, which we just sort of covered a couple of minutes back. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I like that he's open to it. If you're generally a Christian, you wouldn't really be open to this stuff at all. So I think that's really good on his part that he is willing to see correlations there. And maybe even willing to admit that they took it from them. Could be. I'm not saying that it's the case, but could be if this is all what it really is.
Well, if Yeshua was talking about this 2000 BC, that would be after the fact of the what is mentioned about this previous one. This is obviously previous to that, so it would be more coming from them, and then taken later through parables of Yeshua, and what he just mentioned about the other place as well. So maybe that's the connection there, that it does stem more back to the Frisians and what was mentioned earlier, and that these have progressed from that than the other way around. In order, I'm thinking, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems chronologically, it would make sense, yeah. Damn it, I really would have to credit Chris on this show, man. He would really...
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All connected dots more than I could ever do it. But
absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to try and send him a message again. But anyway, let's see. So yeah, that's very fascinating. I like that he's, I will play a little bit more and then we'll wrap it up for this one.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, there's many, you can't go too much into, because they're all different little stories and then it stops and it moves on to something else. So it's, it's not a complete, you don't have like 10 complete chapters about one topic. It's like one little bit here for a couple chapters and then here, and then it stops and then it enters somewhere else. And so it's a little bit confusing in that way. But anyway, we'll continue on a bit with this. And then for the next one, I will do a little bit more work, because I see we need some more stuff for this and make it more exciting. So let's put this back here. And there we go. Let's play this. Let's see where this is going.
Matthew 21, here another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard, placed a fence around it, and dug a winepress in it, and built a tower and leased it to tenants.
I don't think I've heard wine in this story in the Frisian stories, but yeah.
So in the same way that we just read the description of the tower in the Oera Linda, surrounded by crops, here you have this tower with a wall around it, just like the citadel had a wall around it, and contained a wine press, and it was surrounded by this vineyard. Sounds, again, very, very similar to the way that the setup was for the tower in the Oera Linda. And again,
well, he just skips over something that is not very Frisian. Let me go back there. I was just reading along. So here it says, when the season for fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants. So they have already servants, which you don't have. Frisians don't have servants. And the servants beat one, killed another, and stoned another, which is really something that's, if that's would happen in that society, it's really not done, and they would deal with you. Again, he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did the same to them. So that seems to not. So that's why he not talks about it, because that that doesn't correlate.
Planted a vineyard, placed a fence around it, and dug a wine press in it, and built a tower and leased it to tenants. So in the same way that we just read the description of the tower in the Oera Linda, surrounded by crops, here you have this tower with a wall around it, just like the citadel had a wall around it, and contained a wine press, and it was surrounded by this vineyard. Sounds, again, very, very similar to the way that the setup was for the tower in the Oera Linda. And again, I mentioned this earlier, Matthew 25, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, 5 were wise. And those who were foolish, when they took their lamps, took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. And notice at the bottom, the concern is they're concerned about the lamps going out, which is what a theme that we see throughout the Oera Linda, repeatedly coming.
All right. Wow, that is a great ending. Amazing, amazing. Well, up to now, one could conclude almost like they partook from that society and those stories, and turned a little bit into their own. But I don't want to upset anyone. Don't want to get hate mail, but it's just interesting to look at it. So yeah, fascinating stuff there at the end. Anything you will?
Like, as I mentioned, the wine thing earlier as well. He's just bringing up as well, but that was more the Yahwehistic cults. You'll even see during I think it was around the Ark of the Covenant sort of era, there was drunkenness and all sorts of things going on, and around Yahweh there was copper, and wine was some big influences around that sort of cult or foundation of those sort of peoples. But I think they're more orientated towards Tyre, Mediterranean, more than the Frisians. And of course, you're dealing with things coming down from the north to the south. So you are going to have very similarities, and things like even with the Frisians giving other empires knowledge, like as they said, they pretty much come across other peoples. They wanted them to keep to themselves, but they wanted to help them. So I'm sure they would have taught them like metallurgy, herbalism, and the arts of sorts, probably astronomy, who knows. And these things would have played a big part too in them helping other societies, which would have rubbed off onto them as well in their cultures and their stories that will pass down after that. So that's where you can get that bit of a mishmash, I guess, where he talks about the time when the biblical sort of similarities here and then the similarities over there, and you were talking about a lot of different traveling up and down and around in that area. So of course we're going to be rubbing shoulders here and there with certain other civilizations in that area. So you can't see that there would be a high possibility that different empires and that would rub off onto other empires, especially if they had a bigger influence, or they would engulf their gods or their customs, that sort of thing, I gather.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's I don't think I've seen anyone make these correlations yet online, so this makes it extra fascinating to compare this. Only this other Dutch guy who wrote the book Abraham was a Frisian, he makes some correlations that all these stories took place in the Netherlands. So that's quite a claim, but unfortunately I don't have anything in English of him. And so in the interview that I did find, but I put the English voiceover on, was really a little bit annoying, so I couldn't do much with that. But that'll be for another time, I suppose. For the next one, I will dig in some more information, and I will contact Chris again, even though last time I didn't hear back. But I do need him for this one, because it would make it would add so much more to it, since he read it like 30 times or something. So he can fill in a lot of gaps that I couldn't, and I have to guess a little bit at. But nonetheless,
maybe they could send him these two and say, "This is where we're at, man, and we really need you on board for the next one." That'd be a good bit of bait for him to jump on with us. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, true. We can. Maybe you have to lure him in a little bit. So if you're gonna watch this one, Chris, we need you for this one.
We need you.
Unfortunately, we can't pay you. There's no payment.
No payments here, mate. You're dealing with paupers.
but spiritual, you will be, paid, rewarded.
Yes, that's right. Good karma. There you go.
So I'll try to contact him and see if I can get him on board for the next one. And I will do also my own digging. Let's get to Jan Ott's website. It's also in English in his website, by the way. I don't know on the top of my
Okay.
head what it is. But I think
Alright,
if you
yeah.
type Jan Ott, Jan, and then Ott is OTT,
Mhm.
and then you Google it or something, and then website. He has a lot of stuff in English, so you can also do your own digging, people out there. And because I think he has somewhere a page where he has, because there's a lot of amateur people also doing this work with him. So there's a lot of
Okay.
stuff on the website that can tell you what certain places are and what certain names mean. So I have to look at it myself for the next one,
Okay then.
and try to get Chris on board and see what happens. So if not, then we'll do another one soon and dig into this fascinating story, because a lot of people are focusing on the Oera Linda. They don't really connect it much to the Bible. They do connect it to other historical events, like of course Greece, of course, especially Athens, which was supposedly formed by the Grecians, and
Crete.
Athena, and so that's a whole other thing. We might get to it later. So yeah, man, this can be a whole 20 episode series if we go on like this.
Yeah, the never-ending story.
Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah,
So we'll see how far we go. We're gonna at least do another parts, and we'll see if we can get Chris, and if not, that will just happen. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah,
I'll send it to him, see what he thinks of it. So all right. Well, thanks anyway again for giving some of extra your thoughts and info, and trying to put all this together.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be on board with it. I'm enjoying it completely, man. Just going to be interesting to see what the next one or two that we've got coming up, where we go from there. It'll be, excellent stuff, mate. All right, well, I'll put myself on mute while you do an outro, and I'll catch you around. Hopefully, I'd like to be around on the next one. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, thanks anyway. The Salesman with a great bunch of knowledge. By the way, if future things will be all right, we will be seeing his own show somewhere in the future appearing with a lot of great stuff on it, these kind of topics. So hopefully not too far in the future. So look out for that, and you will see it. And I'd like to thank everybody on this episode of The World Gone Mad, the show where we go into a lot of different things and different topics, health-wise, history, politics, many different things. Not telling you what to believe, just sharing things that are interesting and things to think about, and something that might actually be useful in your life. Not because I say so, but because it might be. And we like to hopefully it will do something for people out there. So thanks again, and we'll be back with a third part on this one and many other episodes with many other great stuff to come. So thank you all for watching, listening, and stay good out there, and hopefully it will do something good. Thanks you all, and we'll see you on another episode of The World Gone Mad.
Called fake news. Fake
Yeah.
news. You are fake news. It's all fake news. Fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen. It's all fake news. Called fake news. Fake news. You are fake news.